Your thoughts on this decision, these two submarines, and where they might be now? Obviously, we don't know where they are in the world, but for the president to go out of his way to make this point tells you what?
It's very unusual. And this tells me that Trump is telling Putin and Medvedev that two can play at this nuclear chess game. Remember, Medvedev and Putin, of course, have made so many nuclear threats in and around the Ukraine conflict. But this is a very definite move. He's talking, we think, about the nuclear-powered and nuclear-armed submarines. Now, he wasn't clear, but let's assume it is the boomers, the Ohio class, that carry the nuclear weapons. He is saying to Russia, hey, I'm going to put them in their launch boxes. Their nuclear missiles have about a 7,000-mile range. We're told, of course, it's all classified. And so this is reminding Russia that the U.S. nuclear deterrent, with the submarines as the backup second strike, is alive and well, and you better not try anything.
Well, so when we consider how we expect Russia to respond, knowing that this is in response not to the current Russian president, Rebecca, but the former one, how do you think Vladimir Putin would react to something like this when it wasn't necessarily him that was making an escalatory threat in the first place?
Well, indeed, but Medvedev, remember, is sort of, in a way, kind of his lapdog, and took over as president for him at one point in time, and they're very close, and he's sort of a mouthpiece for that whole establishment. You know, he wouldn't be saying this without Putin letting him do it at a minimum. So, of course, with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff due to travel to Moscow, I think that's also an important element here. Trump is signaling that he is out of patience, that he doesn't want any more of this nuclear posturing that has so tied the hands of the previous administration and of NATO, and that Putin continues to use. And so I think it's very much aimed at getting Putin's attention as well, and saying, you know, we are not going to permit this. Nuclear deterrent still holds. Now let's talk Ukraine ceasefire.
Interesting to hear the words of Mr. Medvedev here, referring to the dead hand, the system that automatically launches a retaliatory strike by way of Russia. What do you suspect Vladimir Putin's response will be here?
Well, again, it's very specific nuclear language, and I think that's why Trump played his card, which is that secure submarine second strike force with the Ohio class. And, you know, I'm hoping Putin's reaction here is, OK, we got to stop going down this road. Remember, Medvedev is also the one who talked wildly about giving Iran nuclear weapons after Operation Midnight Hammer. So he's a bit of a loose cannon.
When we consider, Rebecca, that this is coming at the same time that President Trump is suggesting that as soon as next week, secondary sanctions will be going into place for buyers of Russian energy if Russia does not agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine, how does that then how does this development today factor in to that, and whether or not Vladimir Putin's decision-making around the war in Ukraine is going to be altered?
Well, clearly designed to just put that much more pressure on Putin. And when we haven't seen an American president make a nuclear threat like this very often. One thinks about Eisenhower and how he used threats of nuclear weapons to end the Korean War, 60 years ago. So this is Trump doing everything but, and including the kitchen sink of showing all of U.S. military might, the economic threats as well, to try to get Putin to move to a more rational stance. And I think Witkoff will bring, again, some form of economic incentive. And the idea is that maybe all of this together, close off the nuclear route, try to put pressure on China and others, and that might make Putin decide to attempt a ceasefire, or at least to negotiate in good faith, which he has not done so far.
Dmitry Medvedev also wrote on social media, Trump's playing the ultimate game with Russia. 50 days or 10, he should remember two things. One, Russia isn't Israel or even Iran. What does he mean by that?
He means that Russia's a harder target set. You can't threaten us like this. I don't know what he means. But, remember, Medvedev and Putin as well, they echo Lenin, who always said, you probe with the bayonet. And if you hit steel, you step back. If you hit mush, you go forward. And we've forgotten that in our relations with Russia, it's a multi-step game, and the U.S. has to be canny and show strength and containment power at every step. And frankly, that's why we have this elaborate nuclear deterrent. The submarines are part of that. Another possibility, too, all our submarines are nuclear powered. So Trump might also have been referring to those 4 special Ohio-class submarines that are converted to carry 150 Tomahawk land attack missiles. They use those against Iran. And of course, there's been a rumor about possible Tomahawks going into Ukrainian hands. So I think there's that possible threat as well. Anyway, add it all up, and it is military pressure really trying to tell Putin to knock it off.
Well, and what military pressure can Vladimir Putin respond with if necessary? As we consider, we were just talking about sanctions. That's obviously the financing of the war machine. What is the status of the war machine right now, Rebecca?
Well, it is running full steam, and they are producing 1,500 tanks a year. They are on track to replace all the equipment that they've lost in Ukraine, which is a lot. NATO's new Supreme Allied Commander, Alexis Grinkovich, has said that the U.S. has to prepare for a 2-pronged war, a possible simultaneous Taiwan and Russian strike somewhere in Europe. And so this is also, I think, Trump, seeing those intelligence estimates and trying to shut this down right away by restoring what worked in the Cold War, which was very clear, unambiguous U.S. nuclear deterrence. It's incredible that it's come to that, but this is the right moment to use that U.S. nuclear deterrent card and really show that strongly. Putin doesn't have a lot of choice with his own nukes. He can't use battlefield nukes in Ukraine because the prevailing weather blows that back into Russia. And of course, China would object strongly. So this, again, is Trump trying to shut down Putin's nuclear avenue.